Can you see my disaster in the background?
Yeah.
It's going to be good. I'm going to talk about the organizing section.
All right, cool. So this is me, Jennifer Priest, here with Jen Cushman. And we're...
Hi, this is Jen Cushman, here with Jennifer Priest.
And we're going to talk about Lisa Fulmer's new book, Craft Your Stash. A bunch of us are on a blog hop with her this week, and we want to share with you some of the stuff from the book and talk about ways that we would use it.
All right.
You want to go first?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't have a little fancy camera like JP does, but I do have my camera, and I'm going to move out of the way. And I'm going to show you my disaster of a studio right now. You ready? So, Craft Your Stash is coming at a really good time for me because about once a year, I annually have to go through my studio, and I've got to purge, and I've got to clean, and I've got to reorganize, and I've got to get rid of stuff because I have so much going on all the time that I just keep making and making and making, and I'm not getting a chance to really put things away when I finish one thing. Like, you know, she talks about how she doesn't like to, Lisa doesn't like to work in creative chaos. I tend to work in creative chaos all the time. So then, unfortunately, it takes me about a week to do my studio. So I am right in the process right now of cleaning up and getting things back organized again. So that's where I'm at, JP.
Yeah, I mean, like, my stuff's pretty organized, but I think I am a little bit similar to Lisa in that way. I actually, like, marked that page in her book where she talks about organizing your stash. Because, like, I'm one of those people, I can't work if it's, like, super crazy cluttered. I get really stressed out. And so then I have to, like, stop and go clean everything up. And, I mean, I guess people would probably come in here and think that it's cluttered. But I know where stuff is, like it's in bins, it's in stacks, but it's not like I can't work in my area.
Yeah, so mine is always, I always know where everything is. I know, it would make sense if you came in and tried to craft in my room, you wouldn't have any idea where anything is. But in my own head, it always makes sense. So, and I do a lot of, I don't really have a very pretty studio. I have a very functional studio. And so I do a lot of plastic bins. I do the plastic shoe boxes. Clear plastic shoe boxes are my savior. So, you know, I buy them from the 99-cent store. Used to get them from the Container Store. It was like, that was crazy. So anyways, I do that. So yeah, so I definitely, in her book, I definitely highlighted the Craft Your Stash. And I do have to say there was something in here that I really loved of hers. It was on page 15, and she's talking about the open wire cabinets. And I don't have any of those, but I got a spot for them. So I think I'm going to run down to IKEA later today, and I'm going to pick up some of these open wire cabinets because I do have lots of loose papers and some fabric and stuff I need to stick in there. So anyway, so I don't know, you guys, that section, I really enjoyed this section of her crafting your stash. I also like the way she used the CD and the DVD shelf unit because when you have art supplies, you know, if we tuck them back in a normal shelf, they're going to get stuck way, way, way back. So I found that pretty helpful from her book. So what about you, Katie?
Yeah, I think there were some good tips. Some of this stuff, I was looking at the open wire baskets, and I was just thinking, oh, that would get full of cat hair because, like, that's a real problem I have now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she also talks about these fabric bins, and these ones kind of have like an angled side. And the ones that I use, I actually love these. They're from Target, and I think hers are probably from Target too. These ones have straight sides, and they're perfectly sized for all my Sizzix dies. And so I have all of those stored in these, and then it's really easy to like pull it out. And usually they're by theme. I don't know. Oh, this one's all flowers. And then I can pull it out easy and work on my table. So it was nice to see that she used some of the same, or I used some of the same stuff that she did. You know,
well, look how beautiful, just in the picture right there, look how gorgeous your thread is displayed by color. It's like a perfect ombre of thread color. Like, I feel so lame in this hangout that I'm showing the world this, and you're showing the world perfect ombre thread. So, you know what I mean? It's like, I swear I'm the perfect do as I say, in my columns, everything I do, not as I do right now, as I'm trying to balance the company and the kids and crafting and, you know, making stuff to sell. So,
Yeah, it does. It takes a lot of time, and that's one of the things. Like, you know, I taught this class called the Organized Crafter, and I feel like people, and that's why I think this book is really timely. I think people got in this mode of where we like buy, and almost half of our like crafty time is really organizing time. We just have like all this stuff to manage. It just only looks like this because I've gotten rid of like half of the stuff I had.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm doing now. I have a big giant box to take down to my kids' school to donate. I've got, oh my gosh, I filled up a garbage can last week. So, you know, so that was good too. Just scraps and paper and other things. My problem, and I don't know if she does this, but I think she talks about it, and I know you talk about it. You know, it's one thing when you're a paper crafter, or it's one thing when you're a quilter, when you stay in one medium, but what do us poor mixed media artists do? Because when you're a mixed media artist, it means more medium the better. We love it, right? It's like, you know, I think that, you know, I always say that I really truly, my aesthetic is to be a minimalist, but the craft hoarder in me just like gags that person and makes them quiet. You know what I mean? It's like doesn't allow me to be a minimalist because I'm a mixed media artist, for goodness sakes. I love it all.
Well, and I think that's kind of a similar problem that like people that started out like maybe doing cards or paper crafting, and now they're getting into mixed media or sewing or painting, and now they have like all these supplies for basically like 5 or 6 different hobbies all in one place.
Right.
I don't know how to do that. Like last year I had like this total like a craft organizing breakdown, I guess. And I just like lost it, and I got rid of so much stuff. And I kind of used the measuring tape of, you know, have I used this in a year? Have I used this in 6 months? And it was hard because there was stuff like, oh, that stuff is so amazing. And, you know, then you go through this whole thing like, I spent all this money on that. And, oh, I would totally use it before. How come I don't use it now? And it was hard for me to get rid of stuff. Like I got rid of like all my Quick Cuts dies. And I just got rid of all my Epiphany Crafts tools. And I feel like sometimes it's kind of freeing because then it's like, okay, now I don't have that guilt, and I can work with stuff that I actually really use all the time.
I think that's a really good point for a lot of people. It's like, you know, we buy the stuff. I can see my life. Last time I did a big studio purge, this was about, oh, I don't know. I think I did this about 5 years ago, but it was really interesting because I was leading up to my life to be a full-time artist, and I was leading up to be a full-time designer. And it's interesting the things you collect when you're doing this as your hobby as opposed to things you do when you're doing this as your profession. And so it was really interesting. And so it was so hard for me, and I had to go through a grieving process because I got rid of so much stuff that I spent so much money on because I'd see a magazine article or I'd see something and I'd be so inspired that I would run down and I'd buy everything that there was to do with that project, and then, you know, it'd still be sitting there and the project never got done. So so I had to go through that process, and I swear it almost was like I was in a funk. It took me about a couple of weeks to get out of that funk because I had to really switch my mind and switch my head from, you know, like, okay, this is my hobby to this is now my life. And there's a definite switch. And a lot of people watching this probably won't have that issue because you're still doing this hobby. Oops, sorry, got a phone call. Hang on.
It's okay.
So, you know, some people are still doing this, you know, as fun, and it's really interesting. So, so that's just a whole nother set of challenge. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but I definitely think that, you know, Lisa's book with the crafter stash that you have, I think stash is an issue that we all have if we make stuff. You know what I mean? Whether you're doing it professionally, you're doing it as a hobby, you're doing it, you know, if you're a teacher during the day and, you know, you're making stuff on the weekends. So I think it's a really good idea to get rid of, you know what I mean, to use our stuff. I mean, just use it. Get it out there. Get it done. Craft. I mean, you're crafting while we're talking. I'm so impressed. I'm just talking. So, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And I like that idea that you said because I think, I mean, for me, I think there's a lot of guilt in it, and guilt in having the stuff and having spent the money. And I like Lisa's approach to, like, use the stuff up. And, like, really, if you're not going to use it, then, like, do what you said. Give it to charity. Give it to somebody that's going to use it and give it life so it's not, like, a total waste. Like, don't just throw it away.
Right. Right. And you know what? The thing, I think where the guilt comes in, JP, for me anyway, or at least when I was thinking about doing it, it's kind of like it was really hard because it was money spent, but it was like dreams unrealized. You know what I mean? So it was like that was a really hard thing. So emotionally, it was a little tough for me to have this stash because emotionally, I had plans for all those things. I was inspired. I knew I was going to make all those cards. I knew I was going to hand make all of my son's fifth thank you notes. You know what I mean? His all of his thank you notes for his 5th birthday. I did get the birthday invitations made, but I didn't get the handmade thank you notes out the door. You know what I mean? And I'm like, so then there's this guilt of like, oh my gosh, trying to be the perfect mother and be the perfect crafter and be the perfect, and I'm like, so I had to really learn to let go of that guilt, and now it's like I look at my stuff and it's just now it's like it's time for, everybody deserves to be creative. Everybody deserves to be crafty, and not everybody has supplies. So now I'm like, now I just feel abundant. You know what I mean? I'm like, I thank the universe. I'm like, yay, I'm abundant. I have all this great stuff. And now it's time to share my abundance with others. And I think it's an easier way to switch my gears and kind of wrap my brain around it. So, and I think that we need to have more books and more articles and more things to remind all of us that it's like, you know what? Crafting should be fun. It should be something we love to do. It shouldn't be one more job. Making your craft should not be like having to feed the dog, you know what I mean, or feed the cat. It shouldn't be. It's not what we do. I mean, as wives and mothers and businesswomen, we have to go to work. We have to feed the dog. We have to take care of our kids. We have to, go on date nights every now and then to keep our husbands happy. Like there's things we have to do, but crafting shouldn't be something we have to do.
Yeah, I mean, I had something really good to say. I don't remember what
That's because you were too busy with your glue gun. You're trying to listen to glue gun. See, I'm like, I can't do 2 things at once. I know myself well enough to know that I can't glue and be profound at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you about, like, we need more stuff for people to use their stash. And I think that's what's good about a book like this is giving people ideas of how to use their stuff and to kind of look at the supplies that already have in different ways, like taking a CD and making something else out of it, taking an embroidery hoop and turning it into like a piece of art on its own without, sitting there going, oh, well, I don't embroider anymore. What I need to get rid of this. Maybe you can use it as a frame, like how Lisa explains in the book. So I think that's kind of a mindset change for people. Where they look at something and they're like, oh, I want to try that. Oh, I've got to go buy $100 worth of stuff. Well, maybe you can try that with the stuff you already have. So, like, investing in a book like this would help people be able to kind of, like, train themselves or learn how to create differently, look at their stuff differently.
Well, and I think a really good point of that is that, that's great about what Lisa did here in the book and what you do when you teach, what I do when I teach, is that, we're trying to really kind of get the word out there that the project doesn't always have to look the same. You know what I mean? It's like that. So that's a really important thing. It's like because you're inspired by something in a magazine really doesn't mean that you need to rush out and buy that particular paper or that coordinating thing. It's like what you're talking about right now. It's like training your mind, training your idea, your training to look at the idea of it, to see what the project is, see what the idea is of it, and see what you can take from it and go your own way with it, and it's like to take it. So that's a perfect segue into your craft project. So let's see what you are doing, girlfriend.
All right, so what I'm making is, Lisa has this whole project called a treasure box, and she basically took a box, it's like a paper mache box, and gathered up all these different, I'll move my thing the wrong way, gathered up all these different little embellishments together and then use that to embellish the lid of the box. So I thought, well, I don't have a box to decorate, but I have this bag from Civic, and it had like their logo printed on it. I got this at CHA actually. It was like a little tote bag. And I mean, yeah, their logo's cute, but I wanted to make this for like a holiday thing. So I have all these buttons, and Lisa does talk about like storing things in squat glass jars, which I like the idea of. But I tend to buy stuff in bulk because it's just like that's what I do. So I put a bunch of buttons in these big IKEA jars, and then I just can use them up. So I decided to use a bunch of buttons, and I glued them all over this with the hot glue gun. And then once those are glued, I have like a bunch of glue gun strings, so I can use the heat gun to kind of melt those. I don't know, think you guys can hear me if I'm melting, but just bear with me a minute while I do this glue gun thing.
It's all good. It's crafting. We're watching you do it.
So you can see, like, you can just melt those glue strings off. And then what I'm going to do is use some paint, because these weren't the right color. So I was really thinking about, like, use your stash, right? I want to make this a pumpkin, but I just had brown buttons. I do have orange buttons, just FYI, but I don't like this orange. So,
but you could paint that down. You could put some brown on those orange buttons and get the same look you're going for.
True. So let's see if this paint is dry. Now you can see how old my stash is. Like, oh my god, I think this paint dried up.
A little bit of water. They're acrylic paints.
No, it's like rock hard dry.
Ah, there we go. Oh, look how pretty that is.
Yeah. So I'm just like, I've had this Lumiere. Like, this is one of those things where I couldn't pass it up. Right, $2.97 on clearance. I had to have it. I bought it, I don't know, like 4 years ago. I think this is the first time I'm using it. But, you know, use your stuff. Like, think about it in kind of a different way. And just because I didn't have orange buttons doesn't mean that I can't do this. This is actually a technique I've done before. I did it on a book with some buttons, and I made like a Christmas tree shape.
Right.
You can
I did that one time. I had little teeny tiny buttons that I had gotten on clearance. They were like, I don't know, $1 for the little tiny ones. And so my Christmas cards I made that year, I took strips of pattern paper and I made my Christmas tree out of my strips of pattern paper, and then I did my little tiny buttons as my ornaments on my tree. So it's kind of reminded me a little bit of that.
So that sounds like a really cute idea. I will sit in front of, I have a hard time relaxing. So I sit in front of the TV and I cut stuff. So I'll cut leaves out of felt. So I have like a big stash of leaves already made. And I'm just taking those and making them more like, oh man, like squash leaves. By cutting little notches in them. And around the end a little bit. Whoops. I should probably not do this right over the top of where I painted, because I'm
the little fuzzies are getting in the wet paint, but you know, but it's okay. We're going with it. I'm not here to tell you how to craft your stash.
You would think that I would know how to like do stuff on video, but apparently not.
Well, you know what? This is the real video. This is real and raw. Look at that. Woo-hoo! So that could be a squash leaf, or that could be an Indian feather, depending on if it's Thanksgiving or if it's Halloween.
Whatever. Yeah, I had this like grand vision that I was gonna paint a vine on here too, but I might not do that. But like you could totally do this project like super easy, and
think how cute that is. Like, you know, those are something you can do with an apple, and you can turn those into teacher gifts. You know what I mean? You could take an apple, you could make that out of there, and you could put that on those cute little bags on stuff, and be able to send those with, you know, something for your teacher gifts at Christmas time with some homemade bread or cookies. I'm telling you, I love teacher gifts. I think they work so hard with our kids. They deserve things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good idea, and I mean, you can just take your basic tote bag and
your basic tote bag, some buttons, some paint,
and you know, I mean, every time I go to like a conference or some kind of event or a fun run or whatever, it's like I come home with all these tote bags that I'm like, I don't need to walk around with a tote bag that says XYZ on it.
It doesn't, and I love that. A little bit of gesso, a little bit of paint, and you can give those things a whole new life all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at those cute little vines you're doing.
So yeah, this was a fun thing. And kind of get out of your box and think about your stuff differently. Like, I've had these tote bags for almost a year now. I got them back in January at the trade show. Yeah, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with those. But I could write like Happy Halloween on the bottom, or just leave it like this. Use it as a gift bag, like Jen said. Send it with the kids a trick or treat. And now I've used up some of my stash, and I made it work with the colors that I had.
It's true. It's making me look for my tote bags. I've got them. I just got up, and I'm like, wait, where's my tote bags? I just came across them yesterday.
So There was a part in the book, like we talked, I don't know, a couple weeks ago about the book when we first got them, that you said that you liked about, like a tip she had about using your stuff or going
Yeah.
rogue or something.
Well, there was something. Well, you mentioned a couple of things that you just did when you said that, watching TV, that you're not very good about just sitting. So I do the same
Yeah.
thing. It's like, I know I need to have TV time because TV time is kind of our family time a little bit. So we'll sit down and we'll do that. But one of the things I love to do while I'm doing TV time is I do wire working. So I pull out my wire and I pull out my stuff. It's my way of making my components, my chain, those kind of things. Just like you said, you have a whole lot of leads that are set up because you use your kind of downtime and you fill your downtime. I do the same thing. And I tell my students when I'm teaching, I work in components. I'll do things where, I'll do my resin work for ice resin. I'll do it all in one day. So then that way I have my plastic shoebox is filled with all of my completed resin bezels, and I'll do wire work. So sometimes I'll just make things. So I did want to, so I just wanted to show you real cute where these are kind of like I crafted. Let me see if I can find it. I crafted my stash. These were little pieces. This was like ends of wire, my rolls where I'm almost done. I don't know if you can see this cute little bird's nest ring. So, so I had here's some green wire I had left that was still some artistic wire I had left over. I don't use the craft wire that much lately anymore. But these are fun to have in my craft my stash because these are little gifts to give away, you know what I mean? People are like just cute little bird's nest rings. These are beads that I have just kind of laying around, and oh my gosh, I have so many beads. Like, what am I going to do with all my beads? So seriously, so I just kind of wanted to show you one of those things. So in Lisa's book, she had, let me find out what made me want to show you the rings that she was doing. Oh, I think she was talking about, let me find it real quick.
Yeah, she had a couple jewelry projects, which was neat because it was like this wasn't just focused on like paper crafts or just sewing. It was kind of all crafts.
It was. So she had, what she was talking about was making wire charms. And so in here, so she had wire charms that she was hanging her wire charms from, here, let me show you. So she was taking her wire charms and making a sun catcher or a photo cube ornament out of them. So it's kind of one of those things. And so I thought that was cute because, again, who doesn't have a bunch of beads? You know what I mean? What do you do with these beads? So I think with a little bit of wire working, just learning how to do, I mean, you can YouTube how to wire wrap. You can find anything. You can do wire working pretty quickly. And I think wire working is one of those things that to make these little bead things, these dangles that you can have, that you can use bead dangles not just in jewelry, but you can put them on altered books. You can use them on just about anything, sun catchers. That's another thing I love because that's something you can do when those are easy things you can do when you're doing other things, multitasking, crafting, and doing that. So I think I pulled out my little, this was, again, my wire stash of these cute little bird nest rings and stuff was like, okay, that was crafting my stash. I literally grabbed my pliers, I grabbed my wire, I grabbed a little cube, sat down on the couch, cross-legged, and sat there with my family and did that. And that was kind of my version of craft your stash, what I had. And it was just literally a little pile sitting on my desk that I just swept into a little cube, a plastic cube, made something out of it. They take 5 minutes to make, no big whoop.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are really cute, and those would be cute for like teacher gifts or whatever. Like those are fun.
You know what? I have kind of an adopted daughter. So my best friend's teenage daughter, because I have a teenage son. I don't have a teenage daughter like you do. I have the opposite. Remember, it's like you have the teenage daughter and the little son, and I have the teenage boy and the little daughter. So anyway, but she's so cute, Macy, and all of her friends love my jewelry. So when I make these things, sometimes I'll put them in a pile and I'll give them to her, and then she'll pass them out at school, and then all of the sophomores and freshmen are walking around with these little bird's nest rings, and it just makes them happy,
That's cute.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was kind of one of the things. But the other thing, there was one thing that Lisa did also that I just resonated with me was I like when she talked about going rogue. And I think I told you that. Like, I like that word. You know what I mean? I like the word going rogue because I think as designers in the industry, it's really important that we kind of let people know, yes, you can craft your stash. Yes, you can take your buttons and your bag, and you can be inspired by her treasure box, but you can completely turn it into a tote bag, you know? So you can take, you know, we can take anything we want and we can make anything out of it. So the key is really to use the inspiration, but use your own imagination to really craft and create things that are uniquely you. So
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, and I think people get stuck in this rut of like, oh, well, this item was made specifically for this use. I can't use it for something else. And like how she made the wind chimer. Here's the sun catcher you're talking about with the beads.
Right.
Like, oh, well, I have to use the beads to make jewelry. Well, no, you can make other stuff. Like you can go outside the rules.
Yeah.
If that's going to help you use your stash and make something that you really like, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Like those little die cut pieces she had there, you could use die cuts, or you could just, I mean, my goodness, you can take pieces of metal and put them in there, you know what I mean, through the air. You could make a sun casher just out of your beads and your stash and your wire and your wind charm. So, you know, it doesn't, you can take lids from your containers, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, from your butter containers or whatever, and you can cut those things out into shapes, and you can do green crafting if you're into green crafting. So, you know, so it's I think it's awesome. I really liked the concept of her book. I think it was really timely. I think Lisa did a really good job with the concept, and I'm happy to see it out here. And I really wish her book has a lot of success. And I hope her book, if nothing else, just makes people think a little differently, just like what we're talking about. They just change the way they're thinking about their stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree with you on all of that, that it's timely, that we need it. And I see this being a resource that people can use for years and years, because it doesn't matter, like maybe you can't make those die cuts anymore. Maybe you can't get those same beads. That's not the point. The point is to use your stuff and be inspired. So.
Yep, use your stuff, be inspired. Like, that's a perfect note to end on. Use your stuff, be inspired, right? That's like really cool. So, you know, maybe we can have a use your stuff, be inspired challenge, JP. You know, maybe we can just do that. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
I'm really grand now.
Oh no, I'm doing it again. I'm going overboard.
Well, so we have the blog hop this week, but let us know in the comment section if you think that we should do a challenge like that. And I'll put links down in the bottom so that you can follow along on the blog hop. It started today, so you can see all the posts. I think it's going for like a week, and you can start on Lisa's blog. I think it's lisalizalou.com.
Right. What's your day on the blog, JP?
Huh?
What's your day?
Either tomorrow or the 2nd. I'm not sure.
Okay. Okay. I think mine is October 4th is when mine is. I think I'm the last. I think I might be the last of the blog hoppers.
Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, I have it in my calendar and my schedule. I just don't know if
right. No, but I'm saying, but it's okay. This will be on the blog hop. We'll be doing our thing here, right?
Yep. Yep. So cool. We'll see you guys later. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. It was so much fun. It was so good. So, kind of pseudo crafting with you, JP. You actually followed the rules. I kind of winged it like I always do. So.
All right.
Thanks, honey bunch. Bye.
Bye.